Some riveting radio real estate from Don Pannell, from John L. Scott. You know, we've been talking inspections over the last couple of segments here on the Riveting Radio Real Estate Show, and Don has promised that she would bring in an inspector to talk with us about these things. And sure enough, Jon France is here as well from Northwest Inspection Services, LLC. Morning to you both.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming on the air.
An actual inspector.
I know. Now we can just... all my goofy questions, I can actually pose them to an inspector and see what's going on.
See what's happening.
You have a quick factoid, though, for us regarding the market.
I just got this, and I thought that the listeners to Riveting Radio Real Estate would be fascinated by this, riveted by this. The main thing was that it says that we have in Mason County 0.8 months worth of inventory. We've been talking in the past about how, you know, we're looking for listings because we just don't have that many. So, but 0.8 months, which means that if everybody bought all of the houses that are available for sale, they would all be gone in basically 3 weeks.
And so that's the usual amount of time it takes to close these. And so
right. So we're getting really low on inventory again. And the other thing that this sheet sent me is some of the percentages. So newly listed listings in Mason County are up 43.8% over last month. Pending sales are up 38% over last month. Sold sales are up 76.9% over last month, and off the markets is basically unchanged. But that I thought was very, very interesting and a real indication that the market is improving.
Yeah.
But on the other side, we need product and stuff to sell.
Boy, that's got to keep you busy, John, doesn't it, with all these numbers and the increase?
Yep, we're moving into the busy season, so it's been kind of crazy.
I bet.
And John is basically the first person that gets called, or somebody like him.
Yeah.
Usually, what I do is give folks a list to choose from of inspectors that I work for, or that I've worked with. But somebody like John is the first one we call because people have 10 days basically to do a home inspection on a house that they are thinking about buying, and it is basically the first thing that they have to. If they see something that they don't like or that can't be addressed, then that gives them an option to back out of the sale based on this inspection. So it's a pretty important, very important, I would say.
Yeah.
Always recommend that people get a home inspection as a buyer.
How long have you been doing it, John?
I've had this company for 5 years now, a little over 5 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How many houses you say you inspect? It just depends on the market ups and downs, but you've been pretty busy lately?
Well, typically we look at about, now we're up to 400 and something a year. Last year we did 470 something.
Yeah.
Well, that's a little more than one a day. I mean, that's pretty impressive there.
Yeah, there's a lot of homes, and we're very busy.
Yeah, I bet. Do you mainly focus in the Mason County area?
No, we actually work all of the South Sound region. I'm pretty much anywhere but Seattle.
Right.
Are there some unique qualities to homes in Mason County or Thurston County that inspectors traditionally they run across, not necessarily issues or problems, but are there some consistencies that you know of in the Mason County and Thurston County homes?
Well, the home designs in the Northwest are different than the rest of the country, and so we run across similar problems because most of the homes, the general, majority of them are stick-built homes and varying ages and so forth, but water. I share with people one of my jokes is we love water as long as it comes in a pipe and goes out a pipe.
Yeah.
Other than that, it can be problematic for a home. So roof leaks or plumbing leaks or anything like that is an issue. And then water touching or getting saturated wood can have wood-destroying organism issues. So that's what bugs are looking for, wet wood, usually.
You get the call, you get the address, you drive up to the address. What's the first thing you do right when you get out of the car?
Well, I'm looking at it as soon as I'm driving up the street. Actually, as soon as I pull into the area, it depends on, because I'll get an idea of the homes that are built and get an idea when this home might be built. I usually have that information with me anyway because I do some research online and stuff as soon as we get the order. But first thing I do is try to find a good location to get a cover photo. And then I find out where I'm going to park, and I pull up, and I start inspecting immediately with my mind because I've looked at so many houses. I already know what I'm looking at. Okay, I see that. I want to see, one of the big indicators is what condition is this home in as far as maintenance goes. If it's a well cared for home, then usually it's well cared for, and you're not going to find as many problems because the homeowner's been keeping up on it. If it's a bank-owned property or something that's been left for a couple of years, then you start to go, okay, now I know where I'm going to be looking to see the things I typically see on that kind of home.
Since the crash back in kind of 2008 when that all started coming down, I'd imagine the number of those bank-owned homes increased for you to look at.
Yeah, there's still a lot of that inventory out there. I don't really manage that. I mean, occasionally I'll look at those numbers and see what's going on, but that was significant, and those homes, if they're left alone for a period of time, they start to decay.
Yeah.
Without the heat on, without the electrical, the plumbing and all that sort of thing, it's just sitting there kind of rotting, to one way to put it. Looked at one yesterday. It was actually built in 2008, I want to say, but it had been empty for 3 years, just sitting there. So luckily it's holding up pretty well. We did find some problems and some stuff that I'm seeing. The other thing we look at is the nature of the construction business at the time the home was built. So
okay.
Or where is home construction back then? So you look at homes that were built in early 1900s to even up in the 30s. Amazing craftsmanship back then.
Yeah.
What we would call interesting structural work, kind of like makeshift construction, especially under the house, but yet still standing and still holding up really well because of the materials that they used and then the care they used at putting them together. So even an older home can be really a pretty neat house and pretty good shape. But, like foundations and support underneath there usually needs some help if it doesn't have any bugs and stuff like that. So, but, there was a season of homes between probably late 80s, early 80s through the early 2000s. There was some, things were just flying and stuff wasn't done well. So there's construction periods where workmanship isn't as good as others.
Isn't that interesting? So now John's pulled up, and do you pull up right behind him as the listing agent or the seller's agent? How does that work?
Usually the seller's agent, the selling agent, so representing the buyer, is the agent who shows up to be there, needs to be there to access the lockbox.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, to let the folks in, but I usually try and stay through the whole process. We usually encourage the buyers to be there as well if they can, because John's really good about showing them what he's looking at, especially if he sees problems. Says, well, this is an issue. This is what may have caused it. This is what maybe you can do to solve the problem. So
we provide a full written report by the end of the day, and it has lots of details and pictures and explanation. But it's always better if you're standing there looking at it.
Yeah.
So when they get the report, they're looking at, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. Remember we talked about that, and then I can kind of explain it through a little with them. And
you go through the houses with like the infrared meter, or so you can see through the walls and stuff like that. Or?
I joke with people and I say, I don't have X-ray vision. I'm working on that, but it hasn't quite been developed yet.
Right.
And infrared is out there. I do have an infrared thermometer that I use, but I'm not using infrared camera, mostly because it's an inexact science. So it's kind of guesswork, and I don't like saying, well, I think, because you're looking through material. It's just heat, and that's what an infrared camera will show, heat variances. And so it's great for insulation if you're doing, energy efficiency stuff. And I do use my infrared thermometer. It's the same thing. It's just a smaller version to see anomalies or things that are weird. But we use moisture meters as well, and mostly a couple other tools. Sound. I use a tapping rod on the outside, listening for rotten wood.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because I know where to look, and I can tap along. And even though it's painted really well and covered up, I can find those places that are decayed, and so the sounding rod helps for that.
So if it looks like something may have been covered over with a nice paint job or something, but you come in behind that and go, this area may be a bit suspect. We should get a closer look. Don, maybe you can answer this. What's the process from there? When the inspector says, we got something, the homeowner maybe say, hey, it looks fine to me.
Right. Yeah, and we'll talk about that more next time. I'm going to bring the inspection response form, because there's a whole program that you go through to address the things. I don't know, I was going to ask, have you ever inspected a house where there was nothing wrong?
Well, close.
Yeah, right,
close.
Right. Some of them are in really good shape.
Immaculate condition.
But it seems like there's always something that could be, and sometimes it's just something that's cosmetic and then all the way up to something that's very serious.
Or minor maintenance things. I say, this looks like something you're going to need to keep an eye on and maintain over time.
Okay.
It's not a problem now, but one of the things I tell folks is no surprises. So when you're buying a home, it's a big investment. You don't want to find out later that, oh no, I've got this issue. And so a great one was a home I did up in Lake Cushman. It was on the water, beautiful home, very well maintained. And so waterfront, really nice, probably 25 years old. And everything looked great. I'm looking around, had a half basement. But I didn't see any vents on the foundation around the other half. And I'm going, it's got to be a crawl space because the basement only goes halfway across. And so looking around, finally, it was occupied with their vacation stuff, And I found a crawl space in a closet and opened it up. It was underneath a bunch of junk, moved it out, and opened it up and get underneath there. And sure enough, they forgot to put ventilation in this thing.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
that is a big deal. In a crawl space, an attic's got to have ventilation. So I get under there. There was a piece of the floor joist hanging from the insulation string. They were like
my gosh.
3 years or so was a guess before falling through the floor, because that whole section was all decayed and rotted just from no air movement and moisture. So they, it was great because the sellers, oh wow, they didn't know, and everybody worked it out. They took it was about $25,000 fix.
Oh my gosh.
Because had to tear the floors up and redo it, but. That was one of those things we were glad they didn't have a surprise.
Right.
Fall through the floor. Have the relatives over to hang out at the beach house and find them in the crawl space. That would be good.
We're just about out of time, though, but I want to give a good plug out to Northwest Inspection Services. They need you to come by and check out the house. Who do they call? What's the phone number?
You can call us at 360-239-4596. We're on Facebook. What else? Yelp. Stuff out there. We're out there. We have a website. We're easy to find. Most all the realtors know us. We've been around a while. We're right here in Shelton.
Okay.
So.
And that's typically what happens is that, as I said, as soon as I have a buyer, I say, okay, here are the home inspectors that I've used that I recommend. You pick the one you want. They are the ones usually that call and set that up, unless they're out of the country or something like that.
And your number again, Don?
My number is 490-4493, or come see me on the corner of 3rd and Railroad at John L. Scott.
Well, this conversation just whipped by. It's now past 9 o'clock, so we got to get to the latest in local news. But you guys have a good weekend. John, it was nice talking with you, and we'll be back in a couple weeks, Don.